pun bila-bila boleh masuk hantar barang ni lah.
Sekejap.
Ni dah buat sup.
Assalamualaikum. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Clear? Okay. All right. What time should we start? We're starting at 9, is it?
We started at
Okay. And then
10 minutes, then we start straight away. Is it okay, Otan?
okay. And then the plan is to stop by
9. It's up to you, actually.
okay.
It's up to you. It's not that like 1 hour straight. If you have to finish early, it doesn't matter. So we just start at 9 lah, Doctor.
Jauh kan? Banyak ada di rumah. Sungai dulu dia jual. Lepas tu dia bila di rumah dekat kacang jual juga kan. Dia pilih anak-anak mana kan dia tak banyak kan. Lepas tu dia kata dan dia jadi SPM kan tak ada. Banyak kan degree tak habis. Dia lagi jadi SPM.
Tak ada, tak ambil diploma.
Pak lah. Dia nak tahu nama Pak itu. Dia dah boleh meja kan tu. Semua boleh meja dapat.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Just waiting for Dr. Syed to enter the room before we can start. Everyone can hear me? Oh, itu Dr. Right. So we're going to start our session now because it's already 9 past 4. So we start with our session with Ummul Kitab Al-Fatihah. So Alhamdulillah, we managed to do this session today, where we're having Dr. Syed Abdul Khalik as our speaker. He is one of our specialists here in Kulliyyah of Medicine, actually, and he is one of students as well from here, from IIUM, and for the MMBS degree, and he further his studies in the Master of Medicine in USM. And hope that everyone can go without further ado. And the other announcement is for those who are unable to join the Zoom session, you might want to inform your friends to join the YouTube live, where I have shared it with your class rep so that you can join through there. Without further ado, I will invite Dr. Syed to give his talk for today.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Dr. Azrul, for the kind introduction, and thank you for inviting me to join Kulliyyah of Dentistry's IOHK session. Well, I will try not to give too much, I will try not to be too academic, because I think the idea behind vaccinology, I think dentistry students should have some idea as well. I think you've been taught a little bit in your basic sciences teachings. I hope that you have a basic understanding of vaccinology. But why, when asked to give this type of talk, my topic of preference is actually vaccines. Not because I'm an expert in vaccinology, it's just that because I think the issues surrounding vaccines are so important. We know now we are facing with increasing number of people who are anti-vaccines. I've seen patients who come to my ward with a letter. Tulis kata, I siapa with this, I refuse for my children, for my child, for my wife to be given any type of vaccines, including vitamin K, including vitamin K is not even a vaccine. So I think, and then some people said that because they don't want vaccine because of its haram and things. So I think it's very important for us, especially the students of Al-Jami'ah Al-Islamiyah Al-Alamiyah, to actually understand the basis of vaccinology and understand the qawaid fiqhiyah, the understandings behind the methods of fiqh surrounding the issues of vaccines. So that is my purpose of this session. Okay, all right, so let's go. I'll show you my slides. I hope you can see my slide. Let me share it. Okay, all right. Can you see my slide? Can you see my slide?
Yes, doctor, we can see your slide.
You can see, yeah? Okay. All right. So, vaccine and its issues. So, I have actually 173 slides. But we're not going to go through all of them. Okay. The first thing, so these are something that I have prepared. This is some time ago, some years ago actually. You see this, these are people, this is the brave new world that we are facing in Malaysia, in whole wide world actually. This person is trying to sell ganja, marijuana to a baby with whooping cough. A newborn baby, a small baby less than 2 months old, the treatment is to give marijuana. And then like this one, this is a proper discussion in some groups, and some people actually believe this is a method of treatment. Betul ke nak turunkan demam kuning kena minum air kasbut kan? Tak ada cara. So dia serah pada Allah. Tapi but how what's the method dia buat? Dia bagi air kasbut pada baby itu. So these are so weird things. These are I don't know. 20 years ago we won't be seeing this in Malaysia. These sort of issues, these are all issues of privilege. Anti-vaccine is an issue of those privilege, those people who has never seen problems. So sometimes you don't know how people think. There's another group which I saw. They try to sell this panty liner, and then the idea is with this panty liner you can reduce jaundice. Isn't it weird? Isn't it weird? So to reduce jaundice by using panty liner. And then you see here, this is another one that I actually snapped myself. So they use homeopathy as sort of vaccination, and it follows the same schedule as our national immunization program. So sama sejibit macam kita punya immunization, and it covers for the same disease as well. Despite even Malaysian punya homeopathy punya council kata there's no sort of homeopathy doesn't have any sort of immunization. So again, these are all crazy things that's happening in Malaysia. Okay. So the next thing I'm gonna just show a bit about whose mic is that? It's too loud. Sorry. Can you silent? Can you mute your mic?
Orang dalam tu, orang boleh cakap juga.
Allah, Syafiq.
Boleh lah. Boleh cakap gitu lah.
Can you silent your mic, please?
Orang cakap. Ya. Sembang, kita datang lambat. Kamu cakap. Cakap je para cakap.
Sorry, I'm gonna stop first.
Lambat.
Because the sound is just too loud.
Can I have your
Itu tadi kerja saya. Kalau dia orang boleh bagi tahu apa kita punya feedback, kita pun boleh bagi tahu.
Can I have Siti Nabila and Nabila Razio to
Farah ni. Kak Noni. Dila. Kak Noni kata boleh.
Okay, sorry. This is too loud. I can't even hear.
yes.
Ni Kak Noni.
The mic.
Bersih. Untuk kita apa? Staff dia orang ni kena pakai face mask, plastic glove dengan glove. Ni doktor soalan.
Ini doktor.
Oh, I can't even hear my voice. This is just too loud.
Hello.
Do you mind muting your mic?
Hello, Assalamualaikum.
Salam, yes.
Kak Ima, boleh mute phone tak? Kak Ima? Yes, I managed to mute that.
Okay, all right. Okay, so let's go back to the presentation. Sorry, it's just a bit difficult. Okay, now I'm having a problem with sharing my slides. Can you see my slide? Can you see my screen?
Yes.
You can see my screen, eh?
Yes, doctor. We can.
Okay, all right, okay. So smallpox. I just want to show this. This is my own birth certificate. I was born in 1981, and what I'm trying to say is we are among the last people in Malaysia that's given smallpox vaccine. So Malaysia basically stopped smallpox vaccine around 1980. So if you can see here in the middle there, the green stamp is notice tanam cacar. So tanam cacar is actually smallpox. Tanam cacar is actually smallpox. There was a time children who do not get smallpox vaccine, they can't even go to school because smallpox is a very serious pandemic. It's a very serious pandemic.
I'm sorry, doctor. If that the slide is not clear, I'm not sure whether it's just me or with other people as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Just
Now, can you hear? Can you see?
Yes.
Okay. So this is I'm trying to show you. This is my own birth certificate. The green here, the green bit here, is the note. You can see here. Notice tanam cacar. Notice tanam cacar. This is basically us getting smallpox vaccine. As I said, Malaysia stopped smallpox vaccination around 1980. So there was a time when children who do not receive smallpox vaccine, they can't go into school. So smallpox, before the advent of smallpox vaccination, this is the phases of smallpox. Is it bad? It's very bad because it scars the face. You will look very, 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 very bad if you're still alive. So smallpox is very bad. It's caused by variola virus. 20 to 50% mortality. 20 to 50% mortality. The mortality rate is very, very high. 50% out of 2% getting this disease, one will die. So this is a very serious disease. If you can see now in the time of coronavirus, the time of COVID-19, this is an example of a world where we don't have vaccines. Isn't it troubling? Isn't it? It's very troubling, and we see people dying. because of COVID-19. But COVID-19, the mortality rate in Malaysia is not that high. The highest mortality rate of COVID-19 in some countries is 10%, but most countries is much less than that. But here in Malaysia, our mortality rate is much lower because of COVID-19. But this smallpox, as you see here, is 20 to 50% mortality. And even those that do not die from this disease, most survivors are scarred with residual facial marks. Some are left blind. So this is a very serious disease. It kills so many people in the whole wide world. So many people become debilitated. So after the advent of vaccination, these are the last cases of smallpox in 1975 in Bangladesh and 1977 in Somalia. And then there's two more laboratory acquired case in UK in 1978. But since then, there's no more smallpox has been successfully eradicated in the whole wide world. So is vaccination successful? Yes, it is successful because we've seen with smallpox and with other diseases. So smallpox in 1979, December 1979, WHO declared smallpox as eradicated, and by 1980, most countries ceased routine vaccination for smallpox. So this is a huge news for the world, huge news. A disease that killed so many people is cured by vaccines. It's prevented by vaccine, and it has been eradicated totally from the whole wide world. Another case is polio. Have you guys seen polio? I think those younger than 40 years old probably had never seen polio. So one of my lecturer, when I was a student here in UIA, I was the fifth batch medical student in UIA. At that time, there's no Kulliyyah of Dentistry yet. There's no Kulliyyah of Pharmacy yet. There's no Kulliyyah of Science. In Kuantan, there's only Kulliyyah of Medicine. And I was the fifth batch. So, and we were among the first few to use the mahallah here in Kuantan. So one of my lecturer was a pediatrician, and he had polio. So he walks with the abnormal gait, and he is actually a private pediatrician here somewhere in Kuantan. So polio from 1919 to around 2000, these are the phases of polio. Can you see? It's so debilitating. It's a very debilitating polio. Those who survive, sometimes they have paralysis of their respiratory muscles. They can't breathe by themselves. So what happens is they need to be put on this machine, this contraption. Can you see the picture down below, the black and white photo? That is an iron lung. So iron lung is almost like a ventilator. The machine helps the patient to breathe because dia tak boleh tarik nafas apa semua. So the machine gives negative pressure, so it pulls the chest. Basically, it helps the chest to distend, and we can inspire. So this is, and they need to put this on all the time for years. So is this easy? This is not easy. This is so debilitating disease. It's such a complicated disease. If you see in America, they line these are iron lung. So people baring dekat sini, you can see their head there. They baring dalam ni. So this machine helps them to breathe. Even babies like this. So this is such a problematic disease. This is such a problematic disease with so many deaths, with so many neurological sequelae. And these are diseases that we seem to forget now because of the advent of polio. Okay, so next is pertussis. I just want to show. So pertussis is another disease that we are still seeing now in Malaysia. A disease that we're still seeing now in Malaysia. But this can be easily preventable by giving vaccines. So I'll show this video. I hope you can you hear the sound?
It's just kind of heavy. Uh-oh. There we go.
Okay, we'll see how this baby coughs with whooping cough or pertussis.
Okay. It's okay. Take a breath, Melanie. Come on.
Can you hear the cough?
Yes.
Almost there. There we go. Oh my. It's okay. It's okay. Yeah.
So whooping cough is not a normal cough. It's not a simple type of cough. You see, the baby struggles to breathe. The baby struggles to cough. It's a continuous type of cough. it's a cough that we call as paroxysmal cough, when the child cough like cough, 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 and then do this whoop, we call that. So this is, and then they appear blue, they may be sinus, they may be acid. So this is such a debilitating disease as well. Such, if you have one child that have pertussis, have whooping cough, you will never want to see another child with whooping cough again. It's so, and we still see the blisters in Malaysia, and this is easily preventable by giving pertussis vaccine. Okay, let's stop there. All right, I'm not going to show this other video. Diphtheria is another case. So diphtheria is where it's caused by Corynebacterium diphtheriae, and then it causes as well. It causes swelling of the neck. It causes airway obstruction, and when there's airway obstruction because of diphtheria, it's very difficult to manage the airway. It's going to be very difficult to manage the airway. Okay, and diphtheria is not eradicated yet. Actually, last year in Malaysia, I think we have less than 10. We have less than 10 cases of diphtheria. Even in UAE Kuantan last year, we have one case suspected of diphtheria. It's not easy to treat. It's not easy to treat. Okay, history. So Edward Jenner. So if you look at modern medicine history, every vaccination it will be credited to Edward Jenner, 1749 to 1823. Yeah? So, but if you look at further, actually, the practice of vaccinology has been practiced by people in China, and also by the people of the Ottoman Empire, of the Islamic Empire. So what they do is they do variolation. So what is variolation? Is basically, smallpox caused by the variola vaccine, but they have another milder disease which is called as cowpox. So cowpox is caused by almost the same virus, but it infects cows and then it can get to human as well. Symptomology is almost similar to smallpox, but it's much milder. Mortality rate is extremely low. So what happens is they take the blisters, orang yang kena cowpox tu, dia ada blister, because they observe that people yang herd cow, yang pelihara lembu, they have this cowpox, but they don't die from it. So what happens is they take the blister tu, dia puncturekan blister tu, and then dia ambil that water, dia buat variolation, dia puncture dekat other people, so to create immune reaction. So these people who are variolated, almost like vaccinated, so they don't get smallpox. So this is what being done in China and also being done in the Islamic Empire at that particular time. So what Edward Jenner did is almost the same. So this Sarah Nelms is the first one that gets vaccination. Almost the same technique. So if you look at the Islamic Empire, even at the dark ages of Europe, and the Muslim Empire, if you see Ibn Haytham created the first microscope, and then practice of vaccinology by variolation is actually practiced in Turkey by the year of 1000. We have universities in Baghdad around the year of 1004. We have Ar-Razi. So Ar-Razi wrote encyclopedias of medicine, and he mentioned about pediatrics medicine. He mentioned about immunology. He mentioned specifically about smallpox and measles by the year 865. So the golden age of Islam is excellent. So many things that we can get from our history, and all Ibn Sina, Al-Ghazali, all have mentioned about basis of vaccination and immunology. But for modern medicine, the history of immunization begins at around the year 1796. So Edward Jenner was the one who first introduced smallpox. Louis Pasteur then introduces rabies vaccine. Hefkin then introduces cholera, typhoid, diphtheria, tuberculosis by Calmette. If you see BCG, Bacille Calmette Guarin. So Calmette was basically the one that introduces tuberculosis vaccine. And then diphtheria, and then I want to show Salk and Sabin, Dr. Salk and Dr. Sabin, because of polio. Interesting thing is Dr. Salk and Dr. Sabin, both of them, they don't apply for patent, despite their design, their creation actually saved millions of lives. but they don't even apply patent. They don't even get any benefit financially from this creation. So this is such noble thing that they can do. I hope as Muslim Ummah as well, we can create more things that is beneficial to the whole wide world. So WHO vaccination policy recommends vaccination against at least diphtheria, tetanus, pertussis, polio, measles, Hep B in all countries, and in certain countries, Haemophilus influenza type B, tuberculosis, yellow fever, typhoid, and so on and so forth. In Malaysia, our national immunization program, initially we started with just DT. DT is diphtheria and tetanus, and then we added pertussis. This is DPWT or DWPT. Is basically diphtheria, whole cell pertussis, and tetanus. And then BCG, measles, meningococcal rubella, hepatitis B, Hib. Okay, and then measles, and then we'll see. And the latest one is the HPV vaccine. HPV vaccine. Actually, the latest one was presented in Parliament last year. I think the government last year agreed to put pneumococcal vaccination as part of our national immunization program. So the initial plan was for all the children born in 2020, they will receive pneumococcal vaccine as part of their vaccine schedule. But I think probably because of change of government, because of COVID, so it seems to be on hold. So, but we hope that at least next year, hopefully, children may receive a pneumococcal vaccine as part of their immunization program. So the idea is to protect individuals from vaccine preventable diseases. These are very serious diseases. What are the criteria for any disease to have vaccine? So the criteria first, it must be a very harmful disease. It must have high mortality rate. It must be a disease that has mortality rate. It must be a disease that is difficult to treat. It must be a disease that has high infectivity rate. That is why certain diseases, even though they are highly infective, they don't. But diseases that have vaccine are diseases that are highly infective. Diseases that are highly that has high mortality rates, difficult to treat. So these are diseases that have vaccines. So basically, we can prevent these diseases by just giving vaccination. So okay, but for vaccine to be successful, it needs to have high vaccine coverage, high acceptance, good herd immunity, and low vaccine refusal. So in Malaysia, we changed our vaccination schedule for children. We changed the last one by 2016, where we switched the MMR. So MMR sebelum ni kita bagi sekali dia except for Sabah, but now we give 2 times, once in 9-month-old, and the second dose is by 12-month-old. This is the latest Malaysian immunization schedule. Again, I'm just going to show that vaccine successes. I think we've seen polio cases worldwide reduced. We almost declared polio as eradicated 5 years ago, but then we have pockets of cases. Measles as well. United States initially declared measles as eradicated, but then I think 6 years ago they have these Disneyland measles outbreak, where one anti-vaccine patient with measles at that particular time goes still anti-vaccine. Sometimes they do weird things. Despite having measles, they go to Disneyland, and then they have outbreaks of measles among the people who went to Disneyland at that particular time. Then diphtheria as well. So the moment vaccine is introduced, cases goes down significantly. So immunization coverage in Malaysia as well. We see here by 2014 to 2017. So basically the vaccine coverage is almost similar in Malaysia. And then I'm going to show you this. So incomplete vaccination, 4.5% in Malaysia. Reasons for incomplete vaccination: no time, parents have no time, child being unwell, financial issues, refuse vaccine, and no vaccine stock at that particular time, so they delay a bit, and then forgot, not due yet, and others. These are the reason why. So vaccine refusal. So the number is actually increasing. In 2017, it drops a bit. I haven't got the latest number for 2018, 2019, but it seems to be increasing. If you look at social media, the number of people who are anti-vaccine is actually increasing in trend despite COVID-19. So let's see who are the champions of penolakan vaksin mengikut negeri from 2017. So the champion is still Terengganu and Kelantan. Terengganu and Kelantan are the champion for vaccine refusal. All right, and causes of vaccine refusal. So some says issue halal haram, some says ragu, they are concerned about the content. Many says because they took homeopathy, despite homeopathy punya council in Malaysia says there's no homeopathy immunization. And then pengaruh internet, pengaruh keluarga, takut dengan reaction, and then rawatan, they went for traditional medicine, and then they think with the infection, the risk is low. The thing is, I can tell you, even things like measles. Many people think measles is a simple disease, but measles, especially for a younger child, measles can be a deadly disease. I've seen children with measles pneumonitis. I've seen people with measles encephalitis. This is such a bad disease. There was a time when intensive care, pediatric intensive care in Hospital Kuala Lumpur, for example, was full with children with respiratory distress that needs ventilation support because of measles pneumonitis. And things like chickenpox. People think chickenpox is such a simple disease. See, chickenpox is not a simple disease. I have seen chickenpox has, especially for those who are immunocompromised, mortality rate can be as high as 30%. Chickenpox. So I have one patient, one child, a lovely little girl, I think 7 or 8 years old, had leukemia. So the child had leukemia, was going into remission, and then the child got chickenpox. And this child dekat ward tu, for a 7, 8 years old child, she never misses prayers. Solat tak pernah tinggal dalam ward tu, kan? Such a nice child, baik sangat. Akhlak dia baik, parents dia pun very cooperative parents, this is among the budak paling baik dalam my ward dulu, kan? But this child died because of chickenpox. So chickenpox is not a simple disease. I have seen, I think in UIA itself, we have seen, I think the past 1 year, and a bit, we've seen at least 3 cases of varicella encephalitis. So chickenpox causing encephalitis with seizure and neurological issue. So chickenpox is not a simple disease, such a high risk disease. So this is what I want you to understand. So local contact, so past experience issues, halal haram, and then traditional medicine and things. So I'm not going to go into those details, but what I'm going to show you is just some of the understanding about the Islamic issues. Vaccine preventable disease, this one I'm not going to go again. So basically, we've seen vaccine is successful in preventing diseases, but with vaccine refusal, we may see again rise of vaccine preventable disease. So cases like pertussis, diphtheria, and everything is going up because of vaccine refusal. Okay, basis of vaccinology. So basically, you have adverse reaction. So in the whole wide world, we have these things such as AEFI, adverse event following immunization. So adverse event following immunization is just a reporting process for medical personnel to notify, to record all adverse event that happens after immunization. What type of adverse event? Anything not necessarily caused by vaccine, not necessarily caused by immunization. Even if the child dies because of a motor vehicle accident, it will also be put under the AEFI because the child has been given vaccination recently. So any adverse event that happens to the child after immunization will be counted, will be reported as AEFI. So this is a worldwide method of reporting. And then we have antitoxin and immunization. We have active or passive immunization. I'm going to show a little bit, but I presume you guys have been taught about this in basic science. And then we can give also immunoglobulin. We can give human normal immunoglobulin. We can give specific immunoglobulin, such as, for example, of specific immunoglobulin is varicella. visit varicella zoster immunoglobulin. Varicella is chickenpox. So if a child has chickenpox, we can give specific varicella chickenpox. Sadly, it's not available in many hospitals in Malaysia. We don't even have it in UIA. We don't even have it in HTA. We don't even have it in Hoshas. I'm not sure if there's any hospital in Malaysia that has specific immunoglobulin for varicella zoster. And then we can give toxoid as well. So vaccine is basically a suspension of live attenuated or inactivated microorganism or fractions of the microorganism administered to the patient to induce immunity and thereby prevent infectious disease. Vaccination is administration of any vaccine or toxin. Okay, principles. So immunization basically it induces immunity artificially. It induces immune response and it protects the patient from getting further infection. It must be very specific to a single antigen. Antigen is the substance and antibody is our body's response to fight that antigen, that foreign body. So active is usually we create active immunity basically by the person's own immune system, and it's usually permanent. And passive is where transferred we give antibody. So instead of, so by active we give antigen and the body will create antibody against it and have permanent immune system. But passive basically we give antibody to the person, immunoglobulin. Okay, active and passive, and then all right. Sources of passive immunity we can get from all blood or blood products, because all blood products have immunoglobulin, has antibody as well. So we can give human antibody, we can give homologous human hyperimmune globulin, we can give serum like antitoxin. And then example of passive immunity is like RSV. So RSV we can give immunoglobulin, we can give palivizumab as well, which is a monoclonal antibody. These are all also to prevent respiratory syncytial virus. RSV is the commonest cause for respiratory diseases in children. Okay, classification, it can be viral or it can be bacterial. They can be live vaccines, such as type of live vaccine. It can be inactivated vaccines. It can be virus or bacteria. Then inactivated can have either protein base or polysaccharide base. And then we can have inactivated vaccines as well. These are all should have been taught to you in basic science. I'm going to go through that. Inactivated vaccine, polysaccharides. Example of polysaccharide vaccine is the pneumococcal vaccine. Pneumococcal, meningococcal. So meningococcal in certain countries they are given to all children, but in Malaysia we only give to those that are going for Hajj or Umrah. So nak masuk tanah haram, you need to have meningococcal vaccine. But in such as UK, meningococcal vaccine is given to all babies. And then the new conjugated polysaccharide vaccine, such as pneumococcal. All right, and pure polysaccharide vaccine. This is for bigger children and adults. But in children, we give the conjugated pneumococcal vaccine. So at this 2008, we have the 7-valent, but now we have either Prevena 13. Prevena 13, where you have 13 valent, so it covers 13 serotype of pneumococcal, Streptococcus pneumonia. Or in UIA, we don't have the Prevena, we have the Synflorix. So Synflorix is a 9-valent, so it covers 9 strains. Okay, all right. And studies have shown it is very effective. Pneumococcal disease is causing lots of financial, still causing high mortality and morbidity in children. I've seen a child with bilateral pleural effusion, with bilateral empyema because of pneumococcal. The child had 4 chest drains on the child because of pneumococcal. So pneumococcal disease is still a very significant disease in Malaysia. All right. So measles. Some people say that if you don't get okay, so measles, just going to show you measles. Morbidity of measles is 10% mortality, and morbidity, otitis media, respiratory tract infection, respiratory tract illnesses, convulsions 0.5%. So these are all risks of measles. So that is why measles vaccine is actually very useful. It's very needed. A very small risk of subacute sclerosing spontaneous encephalitis, panencephalitis. So rubella, some say it is very benign disease, it's very benign illness, but it is not actually benign. It can cause so many problems as well. It can cause thrombotic thrombocytopenic purpura. It can cause post-infectious encephalopathy. You can cause congenital rubella syndrome. The child can be blind because of congenital rubella. I have seen a baby blind because of congenital rubella. So this is a disease with quite high morbidity and mortality as well. It can easily be prevented. So, all right, herd immunity, I'm not going to show you. So, myth and controversy. So, people say, I prefer to let my kids build up their immune system rather than get vaccines. People say, well, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Is it true? No, of course not. Because if your child gets that disease, the child first may die. If your child don't die, they'll be seriously debilitated. They'll be deformed. They'll be very sick. They have permanent morbidity and things. So these are all big issues. Your child. So why do we want to expose our child to something that is very high risk? So this as well. This doesn't hold water. Doesn't hold truth. And your child may die. Your child may die because of the disease. Some people say natural immunity is better than immunity from vaccination. People always say natural is better. Natural is better. Well, natural, something that is being natural does not mean it's better. There are so many poisons that are natural. There are so many mushrooms that are poisonous that can kill you. So many other products from nature, you cannot just take it directly. You need to process it first before it can be safe for consumption. So natural does not necessarily mean better. So like diphtheria. So they say if you get diphtheria, it's better than getting vaccination. Yes, vaccination from diphtheria vaccine have its own complication. But if you have diphtheria by itself, diphtheria can cause myocarditis, can cause neuritis. It can cause death in 5 to 20%. Haemophilus influenza, the infection of Haemophilus influenza can cause meningitis, can cause deafness and cause death in 2 to 5% of population. Mumps itself, infection with mum can cause meningitis, encephalitis, deafness, orchitis, ophoritis can cause pancreatitis. Polio can cause death. Whooping cough can cause death. So all these diseases have lots of complications, and those complications are more dangerous than the complications of the vaccination by itself. Long-term sequelae, if you think about natural infection, not because of immunization, this is the long-term just because of the disease itself. You can get subacute sclerosing panencephalitis. We have one patient, one family, 2 siblings, both got this subacute sclerosing panencephalitis and both died. So this is such a serious complication. They have post-polio syndrome, shingles as well. You got chickenpox, second time you get shingles. So these are all very serious long-term sequelae of natural infections. And don't forget about this iron lung. So iron lung is such a huge problem. Polio is such a huge problem that causes so much morbidity and mortality. Polio as well. These are all long-term sequelae. So infection, getting that infection is bad. We don't want that infection. Yes, vaccine has some complication, it has some adverse effect, but the adverse effects are very rare. The adverse effects are much milder as compared to the disease itself. Okay, people say MMR vaccination causes autism. Have you heard about this? So ada myth kata with MMR you can get autism. Okay, so where does this all started? So this all started from this paper that is published in Lancet. Who produced this paper? Is produced by a researcher named Andrew J. Wakefield. So this Andrew J. Wakefield publishes this paper in Lancet, and this paper has already been retracted. So this Dr. Andrew Wakefield ni dia claim, dia kata among the component of measles vaccine is a mercury-based named as thimerosal. So dia kata thimerosal ni is the cause for autism. But this paper has already been retracted. Why? Bila kita tengok balik first, dia actually Dr. Andrew Wakefield ni was paid, dia dibayar oleh satu company. So masa tu ada banyak company yang produce MMR vaccine. So US masa tu dia pilih satu company untuk beli MMR vaccine to give people. So what happens is the company lawan tu dia bayar Dr. Andrew Wakefield to publish a paper to discredit this company yang produce this MMR vaccine. So they have recorded that actually Dr. Andrew Wakefield received millions of dollars from this company to produce this paper. And not just that, bila dia tengok balik, this paper yang Dr. Andrew Wakefield publish is paper, I think around 20 patients dia yang dia interview. Bila dia tengok balik actually, patients pun are not real patients. These are just created patients. So they just letak je. There's no clear individual. It's just a falsified punya research. But sampai hari ni, people still believe MMR causes. People still believe until sekarang. And so what's the effect? Lepas publication of Dr. Andrew Wakefield punya paper tu, measles case starts to rise again. Dia ada increment of measles cases, there are spikes of measles cases. Okay, so this paper has been retracted. Sebabnya semua, because the thing is, if you look at content of MMR sekarang, the MMR vaccine sekarang, they don't have any more thimerosal. Okay, let's see. So mercury content. So none of the, because of the scare, because of the fitnah yang dibuat oleh Andrew Wakefield dengan dia punya colleague dia. Sekarang we don't put mercury content, we don't put thimerosal anymore in any of the vaccine, except for some some of the influenza vaccine, which we don't give regularly in Malaysia, have a small 0.01% of thimerosal content. But other vaccines, they don't have any more thimerosal for many years already. So measles vaccine does not cause autism. There's no study, there's no evidence that measles vaccine causes autism. And if you see here, the content of mercury is higher in breast milk as compared to in vaccine. The content of aluminium higher in soy formula, higher in formula milk as compared to vaccine. It's even higher in breast milk. Breast milk has higher content of aluminium. So again, people say vaccine has aluminium. No, it's not too much. And then people say we give so many vaccine in our children. No, it's not that much as well. Antigen overload. So we can actually, our body is capable of receiving more than 10,000 types of vaccine. This is the capability of our body, and our body can handle that much of immune response. But so by just that, how many 11 types of vaccines, it won't cause any antigen overload. It's not a problem for our body. Are vaccine safe? How many cases of death because of vaccines? But in UK alone, just by bathing, mandi sahaja, orang mandi dalam bah tu kan, 350 children drown per year because of bathing. Ambil breakfast sahaja, 200 people in UK die per year because of choking. Kan? Playing in the rain. In Malaysia, going into the jalan raya, our traffic has very high mortality and morbidity rate. So the disease itself is very high risk. But the vaccine, yes, it has complication. Nothing in the world does not have any complication. Minum air kosong pun ada complication. Nothing in this world don't have any complication. Nothing. Everything has its own complication. Not doing anything pun ada complication. So yes, vaccine has its own complication, but the complications are small. The risks are small if you compare to the risk of dying because of the disease. So this is something that you need to understand. And obviously, before you produce vaccine, there's so many phases to go through. There's so many phases. That is why sampai sekarang ni, despite so many countries, despite so many universities, despite so many hospitals trying to produce COVID-19 punya vaccine, until now we don't have it. And they say, if you hear Dr. Anthony Fauci from American NIH, he said probably next year baru akan ada COVID-19 punya vaksin. So we're going to face this disease for quite some time actually. So the process to produce vaccine, there's so many phases, so many things they need to do to prove that it is effective, to prove that it is safe. So the process is so lengthy, so complicated. And then all these efforts with religion and things, semua akan undermine the effort that we do. So this is where proper scientists do our research to synthesize vaccines, to prove that vaccine is safe, and this is where anti-vaxxers do their research to criticize vaccines. So they say vaccine is an agenda Yahudi, Israeli punya agenda. But if we see here, actually Israeli, they receive more vaccination as compared to Malaysia. See, they even have hepatitis A, rotavirus vaccine. We don't have rotavirus vaccine in Malaysia. So they are given more vaccines as compared to Malaysia. So there's no such thing as, if it's Yahudi punya agenda, what would they give to their own people? So this is not Yahudi punya agenda. This is ummah punya agenda. So vaccination is a worldwide agenda. Vaccination is an agenda of the ummah to protect the ummah. Al-wiqayah khairum min al-ilaj. Prevention is better than cure. This you need to understand. So this is another issue. Some people, in one of the program that I attended as a panelist, so they say, no doctor, this vaccine has gelatin. You know, gelatin is ada babi dalam gelatin itu. Some people say, no doctor, ni ada this MRC5 ni is a component of aborted fetus. Kan? Ada antibiotik neomycin, bla bla. Ada pula kelembuan dalam tu, ada fetal bovine serum. Kan? How to see this? Okay, if you see this, vaccine insert ni dia ada active ingredient, dia ada inactive ingredient. And one thing you need to know about ingredient ni bila dia listkan dia punya ingredient, does not necessarily mean is the content. For example, certain components dia digunakan bukan sebagai bahan buat tu. Contohnya kita buat nasi goreng kan. Apa bahan dia? Ada beras jadi nasi. Ada dia punya bawang dia, bawang besar, ada bawang putih, ada benda tu. So itu adalah bahan yang kita gunakan dalam tu. Tapi rice cooker tak termasuk dalam bahan. Pisau yang kita guna untuk potong bawang tu tak termasuk dalam bahan. Mangkuk tak termasuk dalam bahan. Tetapi in this vaccine, dia akan masukkan semua benda tu. Benda yang diguna sebagai untuk culturekan media tu, untuk culturekan virus tu pun dimasukkan dalam ingredient dia. Bahan yang diguna, enzim diguna untuk lyse, untuk cut the protein panjang, bahan diguna strepsin for example untuk cut that protein pun dia masukkan dalam ingredient tu, despite that is not available in the final content. Okay, so let's see. So what is MRC5? So MRC5 is actually a lung fibroblast taken from a 14-week-old fetus dulu in 1966. So they harvested, memang dia bukan dia saja aborted, but this is an aborted fetus because of maternal punya reason, dia terpaksa abort that fetus, and then dia ambil that sample masuk. At that time dia boleh buat study lah, so dia ambil dia buat study. And then what happens is dia nampak dia boleh culturekan daripada that single cell tu, dia boleh biakkan sel tu. So you tahu normal cell, our cell, can it replicate? Our cell obviously can replicate, but the replication power of more mature cells are not as good. So untuk buat benda macam ni, nak culture virus for example, dia nak kena ada sel yang boleh replicate very very well. So sebab itu dia kata dia use this fetal cell. Bukan dia always ambil, no, just from one single cell yang dia dah replicate. So we are not using the fetus punya cell, no. And this cell is just to use for as culture media, not used as ingredient, but used as a culture media. Some important Islamic concepts for us to understand. Okay, first, we need to understand that the concept of darar, of harm. And Allah says, Inna Allah yuridullahu bikumul yusr wala yuridu bikumul usr. Allah wants ease for mankind. Allah hendakkan kemudahan for mankind and not difficulty. Allah tak nakkan kesusahan kepada kita dalam surah Al-Baqarah. Wala tulqu biaidikum ila tahlukah. Don't throw yourselves into disasters and difficulty. This is the basis understanding of us. And we need to understand that the maqasid syariah, the purpose of syariah is jalbul masalih wa darul mafasid. Jalbul masalih wa darul mafasid. To promote goodness and to prevent badness and all difficulties. So this is the concept that we need to understand. So when we look at whether this thing is halal, whether this thing is haram, whether this thing is ibahah, harus, or if this thing is makruh and things, we need to understand the purpose of the syariah. Allah wants us to have ease, kemudahan. Allah don't want us to have difficulties. Allah wants us to be safe. Allah don't want us to throw ourselves in disaster. And the concept is Islam should be al-jalbul masalih. Islam is being Islam diturunkan for what? For al-jalbul masalih wa darul mafasid, to promote goodness and to prevent badness. Concept of some other qawaid fiqhiyah that we can apply. The first one is la darar wala dirar. Do not cause harm and do not harm and do not cause darar wala dirar. And then the other concept is ad-darurah tubihul mahdhurah. Ad-darurah tubihul mahdhurah. When there is harm, when there is darar, when there is an emergency, bila ada kecemasan, bila ada keadaan yang jadi darurah, ad-darurah tubihul mahdhurah. It permits the unlawful. Something that is initially haram, it may become halal when there is a darurah present. And the other thing is you need to understand that bila jadi halal tu, bila dihalalkan, you need to understand that ad-darurah tuqaddar bi qadariha. Harm dia ada limits dia. Ad-darurah tuqaddar bi qadariha. For example, I give you one example. Tangan luka, tangan ada balut dengan POP, kan? Kita nak ambil wuduk kan tak boleh sapu kat POP. Macam mana nak pasahkan kita punya plaster of Paris tu nak kena air, tak boleh kan? So apa kita buat? Kita boleh ambil wuduk, bahagian yang tak cover ni kita sapu dengan kita kenakan dengan air, bahagian yang cover ni kita tak bagi kena air lah, kan? Tapi kita kena ad-darurah tuqaddar bi qadariha. Maknanya kita bahagian yang dia ada limit dia, tak bolehlah kita kata tangan balut semua bahagian kita tak nak kena dengan wuduk. Ataupun kan kalau kita dengar ustaz-ustaz selalu bagi ceramah masa sekolah dulu kan, kita sesat dalam hutan ada pokok, kita sesat dalam pasir for example, tak ada makanan, tak ada minuman, haus, lapar, kita nak mati dah. Yang ada dengan kita babi, kan? Maknanya tak ada makanan, tak ada minuman, tak ada apa, tapi dekat padang pasir kita lapar, kita haus, tapi ada dengan kita babi. Pelik juga babi kat padang pasir kan. Lepas tu untuk menjaga nyawa kita, kan, ad-darurah tubihul mahdhurah. Walaupun babi itu haram, tapi sebab kita lapar untuk menjaga nyawa, kita punya maqasid syariah yang pertama is hifzun nafs, kan, menjaga nyawa kan. So kita dibenarkan untuk makan babi itu. Tetapi kita makan babi itu ad-darurah tuqaddar bi qadariha. Maknanya dia ada limit dia. Limit dia adalah sekadar untuk menjaga nyawa kita, bukan untuk sampai kenyang, bukan untuk sampai kita pun gemuk. No. Ad-darurah tuqaddar bi qadariha. So dia macam tu. So dia ada konsep dia. So sama juga apabila benda, contohnya perubatan yang ada benda yang haram, for example, ya ad-darurah tubihul mahzurah, dia akan dihalalkan. For example penggunaan satu ubat, nama dia satu ubat low molecular heparin, kleksin, enoxaparin. So enoxaparin ni dia ada porcine punya content, dia ada bahan, ada babi dalam tu. So muzakarah majlis fatwa kebangsaan penggunaan enoxaparin ini jadi harus apabila ada keadaan darurat, orang kena heart attack, kan, dia untuk menjaga nyawa dia, untuk memberi kesihatan kepada dia, kita boleh cucuk dengan bahan yang ada babi ni. Bila ada ad-darurah, bila ada darurat, tubihul mahdzurah, walaupun benda haram. Tapi kita kena ingat ad-darurah tuqaddar bi qadariha. Maknanya tak bolehlah semua orang yang tak kena heart attack pun kita bagi, dia kena ada clinical indication dia. So kena ada clinical indication. Tak bolehlah sebab kita boleh bagi kan, semua orang kita cucuk belaka semua. Oh tak boleh. So sama juga macam tu. Malah dia sama juga konsep dengan apa? Cucuk jarum. Apa hukum kita cucuk jarum pada orang? Apa hukum? What is the religious ruling of us pricking a child ataupun patient, kita cucuk orang? Apa hukum dia? Apa hukum? Hukum dia haram. Kita cucuk orang, kan? Hukum dia haram. Hukum asal dia untuk cucuk orang, tak kisahlah pakai branula ke, pakai needle ke, pakai pisau ke. Hukum asal kita cucuk orang, hukum asal dia haram. Bila dia jadi halal? Bila ada ad-darurah tubihul mahdhurah, untuk kita beri rawatan pada pesakit itu, baru kita boleh cucuk dia. So kita tak boleh lah kita cucuk. Semua orang masuk hospital kita cucuk. No, sebab tukar darbi qadariha, dia ada limits dia. Tak boleh melampau, kita boleh keluar daripada batasan dia. Okay, and then dia ada konsep of origin, konsep al-asl, qawaid al-asl, kaedah asal. Maknanya yang pertamanya dia kata al-aslu fil asya' al-ibahah. Hukum asal bagi setiap sesuatu, origin ruling for anything is permissible. Aslu fil asya' al-ibahah. Hukum asal kepada semua sesuatu benda atas muka bumi ini adalah al-ibahah, dibenarkan, harus. Kemudian al-aslu fil ibadah al-mamnu'. Hukum asal bagi semua benda yang prayers and submission to God, hukum asal bagi semua benda yang berkaitan ibadah, hukum asal dia is al-mamnu', is not permitted, kecuali untuk ibadah ni apa? Benda-benda yang ada nas, ada dalil yang baru kita boleh amalkan. And al-aslu fil manafi' al-ibahah. Hukum asal kepada semua sesuatu yang give benefit, it is permissible. So this is something that we need to understand. So ada satu benda dia start dengan hukum dia permissible, harus. Kan? And then kita kena remember juga al-umur bi maqasidiha. Everything, hukum everything is related to its initial intention. So so semua benda dia relate pada apa tujuan asal that particular thing. So sama dengan konsep contohnya arak, kan? Arak. Alkohol. Yang haram ni is it alkohol ke atau apa? Is it alkohol yang kita kata haram? Kan? Yang haram adalah apa yang haram? Yang haram tu adalah benda-benda yang intoxicating, benda yang intoxicating. Macam mana hadis tengok ayat tu. So basically apa yang Allah haramkan adalah benda yang memabukkan, benda yang intoxicating, benda yang purpose dia untuk intoxicating. Kadang-kadang kita ada tak benda lain yang kita buat, yang kita makan, dia boleh jadi kita mabuk, kita boleh jadi intoxicated. Ada, contohnya macam certain ubat dan certain medication. Certain medication boleh buat kita intoxicated as well. So dia yang haram ni adalah apa dia punya initial intention dia, bukan pada alkohol dia. Alkohol itself does not necessarily mean haram. Yang haram adalah purpose dia, memang daripada awal purpose dia untuk intoxicating. Itu yang kita remember. Yang ni Prof. Omar Kasulih pun mention banyak in detail. So ada konsep yang akan efek pada kita punya kaedah. Itu satu konsep nama al-istihalah. So istihalah means, literally it means transformation and conversion of one material to other material. For example, saya bagi contoh istihalah ni adalah cuka. So cuka ni haram ke halal? Cuka is halal lah, dibenarkan. Kita boleh makan cuka. Cuka ni halal. Tapi cuka dibuat daripada apa? So glukos, sebelum dia jadi cuka, dia kena ada proses dia jadi alkohol first. So cuka jadi arak dulu, lepas tu arak baru dia jadi cuka. Kan? So that is the process. So arak apabila dia bertukar menjadi cuka, dia jadi halal. Benda ni ulama mention in so many in quite detail lah. Ulama Syafi'iyah, ulama semua mazhab ada mention about this. Cuma you remember mazhab Syafi'i, for example, Syafi'i is a bit rigid. Syafi'i kata istihalah ni hanya dibenarkan if it's a natural process. So maknanya daripada arak tukar jadi cuka, if it's natural process, it is dibenarkan, it is permissible. But kalau kita letak enzyme, kalau kita letak something, kalau kita induce that process of transformation, Syafi'i kata is not accepted. But certain mazhab lain macam Hanafi for example, they accept proses walaupun sebab transformation tu dah terjadi, walaupun it is an artificial punya proses, but the whole content, the whole substance has been changed. Kan? Cuka tak ada ciri-ciri kearakan pun. Kan? Arak tak ada ciri-ciri kecukaan. Kan? Sebab the substance has been changed. So bila the substance has been changed, it is accepted and it become something yang tahir, something yang bersih, something yang halal. istihalah. I mentioned here, you look at Hanafi, Maliki, Ibn al-Arabi, Ibn Taymiyah, Ibn Qayyim, Shawkani, Ibn Hazm al-Tahiri, semua accept usage of al-istihalah. Cuma Syafi'i dengan Hambali, according to Syabini, dia kata nak kena ada natural transformation. Okay, the other concept is konsep al-istihlak. Apa konsep al-istihlak ni? This is the concept of hyperdilution. For example, you nak ambil wuduk dekat kolah. Surau-surau ada kolah kan. So, dekat kolah tu sekali ada tahi cicak. Tahi cicak najis ke apa? Tahi cicak najis lah kan, kotor. Tapi bila najis tu jatuh sikit dalam satu air yang banyak, more than 2 kullah, more than kullatain. So, bila najis masuk dalam air yang kullatain, selagi dia tak tukar color dan sebagainya, tak tukar bau dan sebagainya, air itu masih dikira sebagai bersih. Masih lagi dikira sebagai air mutlak, air yang kita boleh guna untuk wuduk, kita boleh guna untuk minum dan sebagainya. Sama juga dengan air laut, air sungai. For example, berapa lembu berak situ, babi berak kat situ, tapi air itu still air yang bersih. Air itu still air yang suci. Air itu still air yang kita boleh guna buat minum. Kita kena suci, kita kena rebus dulu kan. Kita still boleh guna untuk ambil wuduk dan sebagainya. It is still considered as halalun. Despite ada babi yang berak dekat atas sana tu, but it is still considered as halal. Why? Because it is al-istihlak, because it is hyper diluted. So sama jugalah dengan konsep yang kita tengok pada kita punya vaksin dan sebagainya. Sebab konsep dia walaupun ada, kalau kita consider lah ada elemen yang haram, jumlah yang digunakan itu is too small to be considered as significant. Sebab itu kita boleh ambil konsep al-istihlak. Okay, next, few fatwa yang kita boleh tengok. Okay, European Fatwa Council ni isu contohnya isu gelatin kan, isu gelatin. So European Fatwa Council yang dia punya President of European Fatwa Council is actually Yusuf Al-Qaradawi. Dalam dia ada Syekh Qaradawi, Syekh Qaradawi dalam tu, banyak ulama-ulama yang besar dalam dunia ni is under European Fatwa Council. They don't even live in Europe, many of them. But they are in this European Fatwa Council, and also the Islamic Organization of Medical Sciences rule out use of porcine gelatin as permissible. Dia kata is dibenarkan as it has undergone the process of istihalah. So maknanya gelatin tu tak ada pun ciri-ciri kebabian dia, kan, walaupun dia sama ada protein dan sebagainya, tapi proses pertukaran from a porcine protein into a gelatin. But there is still khilaf. For example, if you see Majma' Fiqh Saudi, it allows istihalah. Dia kata istihalah is acceptable, but dia kata gelatin ni is not a complete transformation, complete istihalah. So Saudi dia tak accept gelatin. Okay, so this is the European Fatwa Council yang kata gelatin is permissible because they have undergone the process of transformation, process of al-istihalah. Okay, I'm going to show you. And then who are the council members of European Fatwa Council? European Fatwa Council. Ada Yusuf Qaradawi, ada Syekh Faisal Maulawi, ada siapa lagi yang mungkin kita kenal Anis Qurqah, Rashid Ghanushi. Rashid Ghanushi sekarang dah tak ada lah. Rashid Ghanushi ni is the leader of An-Nahda. Leader of An-Nahda in Tunisia. Syekh Abdullah bin Bayah. Abdullah bin Bayah ni di antara ulama besar sekarang ni. Abdullah bin Bayah ni di antara ulama yang besar sekarang ni. Abdullah bin Ali Salim, Abdul Majid Najjar, siapa ni? Abdullah bin Sulaiman Al-Mani'. Ni semua ni Abu Ghuddah, semua ni ulama-ulama besar siapa lagi? Ali Qaradawi, siapa Tahir Al-Mahdi. Ni pun ni semua ulama-ulama besar ni. Ni bukan simple people lah. So these people say it is acceptable European Fatwa Council. So let's look at one virus, one vaccine, oral polio vaccine. So Malaysia satu masa dulu we use oral polio vaccine. I think our age kita still dapat oral polio vaccine. Sekarang ni children nowadays they don't get oral polio vaccine anymore. They receive injectable polio vaccine. So oral polio vaccine ni problem dengan oral polio dia ada satu dalam proses nak buat dia untuk cut the protein Oral polio vaccine ni, polio tu dia ada protein dia. And to cut that protein tu dia guna trypsin. Satu bahan nama trypsin. Trypsin is used to cut the protein. So that trypsin sadly is a porcine trypsin. So dia ambil trypsin daripada al-babi, daripada khinzir untuk get that trypsin Dan trypsin tu guna dia bukan as content tapi diguna untuk cut the protein. Tapi sebab dia ada khinzir dekat situ, so ada banyak isu kan. Ada some fatwa in some parts of the world kata oral polio vaccine ni is haram. Okay. So apa kata oral fatwa council? So fatwa council kata what God forbids is partaking of. Allah haramkan adalah kita pergi makan babi. And trypsin has nothing to do with pork. Trypsin tu tak ada guna pun. Tak, orang yang kesukaan dia tak suka pun makan trypsin sebab trypsin has nothing to do with partaking of pork. Walaupun dia daripada pork, dia daripada babi, tapi dia tidak ada kaitan pun dengan kesukaan orang untuk makan babi. So this is one thing yang European Fatwa Council kata. Yang kedua dia kata even if we admit kalaulah orang tak terima hujah yang dia kata trypsin is still haram. So the amount used in preparing the vaccine is negligible. If one applies the rule that when the amount of water exceeds 2 kullah, so impurities no longer affected. So this is concept of al-istihlak. 2 kullah ni 343 liter. Kan? So kalau kita katalah okey kita tak terima kata trypsin ni, kita kata trypsin ni still haram kan. Tak, kita ingat proses buat vaksin tu is the amount is negligible. So dia more daripada 2 kullah. So concept of al-istihlak is applicable. Dia masih suci. Kan? Okeylah kalau ada orang tu dia masih juga tak terima. So dia kata okeylah trypsin ni still unclean, still kotor, kita still tak nak terima pakai hujah al-istihlak ni. Dia kata lagi it is thoroughly filtered. Walaupun dia dah guna, lepas tu dia filter out pula and leaves no traces whatsoever in the final vaccine. Dalam final vaccine tak ada dah sebab dia dah filter out dah trypsin yang guna tu. Kan? Kalau tak terima pakai lagi, fatwa council kata apa? In case people tak terima tiga-tiga argument ni, still tak cukup, kita kena ingat the haram, forbidden is made permissible in cases of necessity. Bila ada darurah. Haram, forbidden is made permissible in cases of necessity. Ad-darurah tubihul mahzurah. So this is the concept. Darurah membenarkan, mensucikan benda yang haram. So ni benda yang kita kena clear. So ni yang benda yang fatwa nak ni. Malah European Fatwa Council encourage dia kata not semua umat Islam not be too strict in such matters, especially yang ada benefit kepada Muslim ummah, Muslim children dan Muslim ummah. So ini yang European Fatwa Council kata. Kenapa saya sebut oral polio vaccine ni? Sebabnya adalah ada isu dengan rotavirus vaccine. Rotavirus vaccine, rotavirus vaccine rotavirus ni is the causes diarrhea. Syarif berik pada kanak-kanak is caused by rotavirus. Among the causes is rotavirus. Kita ada rotavirus vaccine. Problem dengan rotavirus vaccine ni it porcine trypsin. Dia ada porcine trypsin. So porcine trypsin. So sebab itu kita akan tengok fatwa Muzakarah Majlis Fatwa Kebangsaan. So fatwa dia sebenarnya lebih kurang sama dengan isu dengan oral polio vaccine. So ni yang di antara example yang pasal polio vaccine. Okay, saya nak go through few things. Kita go through yang last ni je lah. Fatwaan Rotatec and Biotrack. So Muzakarah Majlis Fatwa Kebangsaan mention a fatwa about Rotatec and Biotrack. So Biotrack ni untuk anthrax vaccine. These two vaccine rotavirus dengan anthrax, dia guna porcine trypsin. Again, dia guna trypsin untuk potong protein. Dia guna trypsin dalam bahan dia, dalam proses pembuatan dia guna porcine trypsin. Both rotavirus and anthrax vaccine. Okay, Muzakarah Majlis Fatwa Kebangsaan kata disebabkan dua-dua bahan ini, dua-dua vaksin ini menggunakan porcine trypsin, menggunakan trypsin daripada khinzir. Maka Muzakarah Majlis Fatwa Kebangsaan kata dua-dua vaksin ini di Malaysia dikira sebagai haram, tidak dibenarkan. Sebab apa? Menurut Muzakarah Majlis Fatwa Kebangsaan, dua-dua penyakit ini, penyakit disebabkan rotavirus dan penyakit disebabkan anthrax, dua-dua bukan penyakit yang berbahaya di Malaysia. Dua-dua bukan penyakit yang signifikan di Malaysia. Well, anthrax betul. Anthrax kat Malaysia tak ada. It's not penyakit yang serius dekat Malaysia. Tetapi rotavirus adalah penyakit yang berbahaya. Saya actually berjumpa dengan Tan Sri Syukur, pengurusi Majlis Fatwa Kebangsaan. Saya tanya dia kenapa. Sebabnya saya sebagai pediatrician, I still see children with rotavirus vaccine. I still see children dying because of rotavirus vaccine. The government still lose lots of money because of children being admitted because of rotaviral disease. Kan? So having rotaviral vaccine will actually save children. Dia selamatkan nyawa, dia selamatkan kesihatan, dia selamatkan keluarga, dia selamatkan duit kerajaan, duit rakyat. Kan? So saya tanya dia. So dia kata isunya adalah masa they did this muzakarah, the people that presented to them told them that rotaviral disease is not a significant disease in Malaysia. So this is the problem. So I really hope actually muzakarah Majlis Fatwa Kebangsaan will rectify its fatwa lah. Okay, ini sekarang ni Menteri Agama kan, dia kata vaksin adalah harus ni dibenarkan lah, it is dibenarkan. Ini isyad fatwa pada isyad fatwa ke-30. Who else? Daripada Uniza juga mencakapkan al-ibahah penggunaan vaksin. Tengok ni KKM bla bla bla. Alright, Terengganu Mufti Terengganu kata vaksin ni bukan setakat al-ibahah, malah in certain condition it may be considered as wajib. Mufti Terengganu kata penggunaan vaksin bukan setakat al-ibahah, bukan setakat harus, malah in certain condition it may even be wajib. Ni siapa ni cakap? So another issue dia kata berdosa jika tolak vaksin sebagai punca anak kena penyakit. Ini yang di-mention lah. Alright, lepas tu Mufti Kelantan, penggunaan vaksin yang ada bahan terlarang. So di KKM under Kementerian Kesihatan Malaysia, there is no vaksin yang ada benda-benda yang terlarang. Benda-benda yang haram tidak ada, nothing, tak ada. So penggunaan vaksin yang ada bahan terlarang adalah harus. Ni kata daripada Mufti Kelantan, saya bersama Mufti Kelantan. Okay, so dia kata dia kata kerajaan still ada hak untuk mewajibkan kepada anak-anak. So di Timbalan Dekan Uniza. Okay, I think that's all lah. I think these are emergence of disease. I'm not going to go through that. But what I want you guys to understand is that giving vaccine, there is a basis of giving vaccine. Bila kita bagi vaksin, dia ada reason kita bagi, sebab kita nak protect daripada serious, debilitating and high mortality punya disease, and we need to understand that bila kita bagi vaksin, we are trying to prevent these diseases and we have basis of it. Tak ada isu yang haram, tak ada isu yang dia dan sebagainya. Of course ada vaksin yang ada isu, ada vaksin yang saya pun tak agree. Tapi semua vaksin yang ada dalam Malaysia punya schedule is a vaccine that is actually very important. It is safe. It is going to save Malaysian from so many debilitating and serious diseases, and it will save Malaysia daripada macam-macam isu. Dan we need to understand dia ada basis of qawaid fiqh dia. So bila kita understand, so kita sebagai student daripada Al-Jamiah Al-Islamiyah Malaysia, we need to understand that when we need to understand that dia ada reason dia, dan ada kalau orang discuss dengan kita, at least kita boleh discuss lah, kita boleh bagi tahu kaedah dia macam mana, kaedah al-istihalah, kaedah al-istihlal, darurah tuqadar bi qadariha, darurah tubihul ma'dzurah. So student daripada Al-Jamiah Al-Islamiyah Malaysia, we should be able to explain to others at least. So I think that's all as I want to present. I hope at least you guys get a bit about what I've been speaking about for 1.5 hours already. So if there's, I'll open if there's any question. I'll return the session back to Dr. Azrul.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Said, for very informative talk for today. I hope everyone at least got something out of it that you can share with anyone. I just open for one question only, as we have exceeded our time, and some of it already left because they got classes. Some of the students already left because of the classes. So just one question, if there's any. I think there's one question here in the chat from Dr. Susi, asking about how about the vaccine for
Dr. Susi asked about COVID vaccine. COVID vaccine is still, I think it's still a long way to go lah. Just COVID vaccine, I think it's still a long way to go. It's still under trial. It's still under trial. It's not like influenza. If you remember in 2009, in 2009 we have the pandemic of influenza, H1N1 pandemic at that particular time. I remember I was a medical officer in Hospital Kuantan at that particular time. Hospital Kuantan was among the highest hospital with the highest pediatric mortality. Under me, I have 1 week where 5 babies died because of H1N1. Masuk malam, besok pagi mati. Masuk malam, besok pagi mati. It was so bad at that particular time. But then we found treatment quite early. Because why? Because influenza is a bit easier as compared to coronavirus. The virus is a bit easier to understand. We have had influenza vaccine for years before that, and we already have some medications to counter that, such as the Tamiflu, oseltamivir is already being used at that particular time to treat influenza. So it's just the matter of to tailor the vaccine and the medication to cater for H1N1 as well, and to prove that it is safe. So actually, I think influenza H1N1 at that particular time, I think around August, we already sort of win against influenza H1N1. But coronavirus is a bit difficult because how the virus behaves is still difficult. And I must say, despite this already 8 months of coronavirus, we still don't particularly understand in detail about coronavirus. I am personally not sure still whether even if we get coronavirus, COVID-19 disease, do we develop immunity towards it? Because we know we have immune system, we have immune reaction, we have COVID-19 antibody, but then is it permanent? Because some studies, some researchers have mentioned recently that after few weeks, after few months, the antibody sort of tapered down and we lose the antibody from our body. So if there's no permanent antibody, then vaccination will be a trouble. So I'm not quite sure whether it's going to be successful or not. But I think we don't have any other option other than hoping for the best. I think there's so many in India, in UK have 2 centers trying to produce it, America. So many countries are trying to produce influenza. Egypt as well is trying to actually produce COVID-19 vaccine. So one of my colleagues in UK is involved in the COVID-19 vaccination process. But I think it's still some way to go. I think the earliest, if we think we can get COVID-19 vaccine, will be somewhere second part of next year, not this year. Sad but true.
So yeah,
the second is culture medias. I think yes. In terms of the idea of istihalah is okay. Again, if you look at Shafi'i, if the material is being transformed when it has no structure of the original structure, then it can be considered as halal. But Shafi'i and Hanbali, it must be a natural process. But if you look at other mazhabs, it is permissible. Can we actually use a decision from other mazhabs? Is it possible? I'm telling you that can. I give you an example. I'm not saying that we don't need mazhab. No, I'm Shafi'i as well. Malaysian, we should be Shafi'i. But one thing we need to understand is it's very difficult if we are too strict. I give you one example. How do we pay zakat fitrah? How do we pay zakat fitrah? Almost everyone in Malaysia, we pay zakat fitrah by pay. We pay zakat fitrah. But if you look at Shafi'i madhab, Shafi'i does not allow zakat fitrah to be paid by currency. According to Shafi'i, if you look at Imam Shafi'i, if you look at Majmu' Syarhul Muhadzab by Imam Nawawi, they don't allow usage of currency to pay zakat fitrah. You cannot use money to pay zakat fitrah. In the time of Imam Shafi'i, in the time of Imam Nawawi, they are already currency, but they don't allow currency to be paid. So for them, zakat fitrah must be used by the food. Kalau kita Malaysia makan beras, kita kena bagi beras. Kita duduk UK makan roti, kita kena bagi gandum. Kan? But we are using decision from other mazhabs. I give you another example. Ya, orang selalu balah pasal mazhab ni. I give you one example. I'm not saying you cannot just use suka-suka dia. Ini untuk ni kita guna mazhab ni, untuk ni kita guna mazhab ni. No. What I'm trying to say is don't be too rigid. I give you one example. If you look at Kitab Al-Imam Shafi'i, okay, kita mazhab Syafi'i, our source of reference is actually kitab what Imam Syafi'i actually said lah. So if you look at kitab Imam Syafi'i, dalam kitab Salah, dalam the book of Salah, ada satu bab tu is bab zikir selepas solat. So Imam Syafi'i sebut, by Imam Syafi'i, he mentioned that for him after prayers, zikir secara jahar, zikir secara kuat ini adalah untuk imam ajar makmum untuk zikir. Apabila makmum telah faham dan telah pandai cara berzikir, maka bagi Imam Syafi'i aulanya adalah zikir secara sendiri-sendiri. Tapi kita kat Malaysia kita balah, we fight about this. This is the issue when we don't understand our religion, we don't understand our mazhab, then we fight. So my point is, istihalah can be used, but don't use it. Maknanya kena ada restriction, kena ada control. Ad-darurah tuqaddar bi qadariha. So I think if you use culture media, then you can use this method of al-istihalah because it is transformed. You don't letak, kita bukan letak babi dalam tu kan, dalam jadi culture media. Kita tak letak babi. Kita tak letak darah, blood agar kan. Kita tak letak darah. Kita just mix, ada mixture di dalam tu. So we can use istihalah, we can even use al-istihlak as the concept. So this is what I understand.
Right, I think that's all for now. So just one announcement. Just here sadden news: the loss of our doctor, which is Dr. Imran. So I hope everyone can give some fatihah for him. Thank you, Doctor, for very informative. Hopefully we can invite you again to elaborate more on other things. And as for now, I think we just stop our session with Tasbih Kafarah and Surah Al-Asr.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Doctor.